Pirate software is what happens when you give someone with a massive ego a microphone and an audience. Not only does he have some of the worst takes the online gaming community has ever seen.
Oh shit, now this is actually really dumb. It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit. It's shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm gonna actively tell people not to.
He also seems deathly allergic to taking accountability.
Just wants me to sit down, grovel on my knees and be like, I'm so sorry, Mr. Yamato. It was all my fault, the mage.
Even Dr. K, a professional psychiatrist, failed to make him realize his own arrogance.
I think sometimes the things that I talk about in regards to those types of things is misconstrued as arrogance or boasting, when in reality, I'm just trying to give context.
So that is the problem right there. So I want you to listen to this phrase. This gets misconstrued as arrogance, but in reality, it's this.
Yeah.
That is the most arrogant statement on the planet, bro. Like, tell me I'm wrong.
Okay, I don't see it that way, but all right.
And the moment the internet saw his true colors, it was all downhill from there. Even then, the one thing he still had going for him was his technical prowess as an expert game developer and an elite hacker.
It was a lot. So after that, I ended up going to work for the United States Department of Energy because I'm a hacker, offensive security guy, and I hacked power plants for the federal government. And now then I quit, and now I make video games on the internet. I've been doing this for a couple of years now.
Well, as it turns out, much of what he claimed might have either been a flat-out lie or, at best, an over-the-top exaggeration.
When Pirate Software told everyone that he worked on video games for 20 years, that he worked as a hacker, why did anyone believe him when this was what he was putting out? Why did it take this long for people to call him out for being a fraud when this is his magnum opus that took him 8 years? 8 years of perfecting your craft for something a middle schooler could make. This isn't the work of a professional. This isn't even the work of an amateur. It's pathetic.
Hi, I'm the Internet Anarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries, and today we're revisiting the man who's currently going through one of the most spectacular downfalls in YouTube history, Pirate Software. How everything is built over the years is unraveling right in front of his eyes, and it's only getting worse with each passing day. Since, while being supremely arrogant is bad enough, Pirate Software might even get in legal trouble for defrauding his audience. Now, I've already made a video going over the major controversy that initiated his downfall, but if you haven't watched that video yet or need a refresher, here's a quick recap to get you up to speed. Pirate Software, aka Jason Thor Hall, is an ex-Blizzard employee who, after allegedly working for the US government as a hacker for a bit, decided to develop his own video game in 2017 called Heartbound. He also started streaming his game progress on Twitch and uploading clips from those streams on YouTube Shorts. These shorts blew up big time, allowing him to gain millions of new subscribers on YouTube, over 80,000 paid subs on Twitch, and even break the Twitch hype train record 4 different times. But then 2025 rolled around, and Thor managed to destroy the goodwill the internet once had for him. First, by causing his friends to lose months of progress in a hardcore World of Warcraft game and refusing to take accountability.
Just wants me to sit down, grovel on my knees and be like, I'm so sorry, Mr. Yamato. It was all my fault, the mage.
And then by taking a stance against the Stop Killing Games initiative, which would stop game publishers from killing games people had already paid for.
Oh shit, now this is actually really dumb. It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit. It's shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm gonna actively tell people not to.
He misunderstood the whole movement on a fundamental level, and then used some of the harshest language he's ever used to speak up against it.
That is a horrible goddamn direction. That's awful, dude. No, eat my entire ass. The level of stupid that I just had to receive was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This shit sucks. That's a really stupid ass move. That's an incredibly stupid ass move. I think this is ass. This is complete garbage. All of this can eat shit then. I drop the mask entirely. I have no qualms about that. They can eat my entire ass. The whole thing.
His viewers were shocked at him blatantly rejecting something they thought was good. Thor, on the other hand, continued posting more videos doubling down on his take. But then, some of the biggest creators on the platform, like Charlie, Jacksepticeye, and PewDiePie, voiced their support for the initiative. This only made Thor look worse by comparison, making the whole internet, including his audience, turn against him. Now, Thor had a chance to retain some of the trust his viewers had in him, despite the overwhelming amount of backlash he was receiving. All he had to do was admit that he was wrong, but not only did he not do that, he stuck to his guns, regardless of how wrong he was. He was caught lying about his games getting review bombed because of the controversy, making him look even more pathetic than he already did. Now, at the end of my last video, I posed 2 possible futures for Thor. He could either admit that he was wrong and turn things around, or stay stubborn and turn into the perpetual lolcow of the internet. And from the looks of it, he's chosen the second option, which has not only earned him more hate, but has prompted people to take a deeper look into his life, starting with his reputation as a master coder, and what they found was shocking to say the least. It started when a YouTuber named Coding Jesus, whose main content is him dissecting people's code and pointing out issues, decided to review the code for Heartbound in a video titled, "I reviewed Pirate Software's code, oh boy." And as you might be able to judge from the title, he didn't really have any good things to say about it, with him even going as far as to declare Thor's code to be worse than most entry-level interns.
Imagine removing all these comments. Would you, as a newly added game developer to his game project, have any idea that one is Shelly? You would have no idea. This would never ever be allowed in a production repository. And I've been hinting, it's below what you'd expect of a bottom tier intern.
Thor, however, didn't appreciate the constructive criticism and handled this review in the only way he knows how to.
It's just another, YouTube grifter trying to fight for relevance, dude. That's all that shit is. All too common these days.
However, there was something Thor said that was uncharacteristically reasonable for him, and actually made some sense.
It's just a bunch of disingenuous arguments put up in bad faith trying to make me look like a bad programmer. And in reality, this guy has never used the engine that I'm working in, never used the language that I'm working with, and all of his points are moot as a result.
From an objective point of view, his reasoning here for why Coding Jesus wasn't able to understand his coding style, because he's not a game developer, seemed sound. That was until another YouTuber, Quinn Theo, decided to get Coding Jesus on a call and dissect Thor's arguments together. They began by analyzing Thor's comments about Coding Jesus' very first critique, with Coding Jesus explaining how Thor doesn't use a very basic practice in his code that even school-level coders know how to use.
Manually setting all to 0 with 8 lines, those were set to 0 because it was ending the alarms. By setting them to 0, you're actually setting the alarm to off.
So what he's doing here is a classic example of deflection. He pretends the chatter asked, "Why do you set the alarms to 0?" instead of the question, which was, "Why don't you iterate over them in a for loop?" A for loop is a very basic coding construct. If you're iterating through a consecutive set of numbers, you definitely want to use that. It's the perfect scenario for a for loop.
While also pointing out how he deflects from the real question whenever he doesn't know the answer.
But he pretends that he didn't understand the question and then tries to answer something else.
And in case you're not familiar with programming, a commenter summed up Thor's flawed approach perfectly, stating, "He is literally doing the equivalent of writing 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 instead of writing 2 × 25. But that was just the tip of the iceberg, because while someone might argue that he simply misunderstood the criticism instead of purposefully deflecting it, that doesn't explain why he kept doing the same thing over and over again.
Sprite Spark is not a magic number. It's a direct reference to an asset file called Sprite Spark. This is how GameMaker allows you to link sprites and other assets. When you want to use a sprite, sound, or other object, you call it by name.
This is disingenuous at best and an obfuscation tactic at worst, because as you can see here, there's a lot of numbers here. It's very obvious when I'm talking about a magic number, I'm talking about things like 1, 0, 15, 270, 360. I'm not talking about what my mouse just happens to be highlighting, which is SPR Spark.
Almost as if it's a core part of the tactic he uses to sound more knowledgeable than he actually is.
He has this repeating theme where somebody gives him a question and then he pivots to something that somebody didn't even ask or address to try to get out of that question.
Something that becomes abruptly clear when he does address criticism directly and ends up being objectively wrong about everything he's saying.
Data types are not defined in GameMaker. You cannot define a Boolean. You can use 0, 1 or true, false at will. It doesn't do anything. None of this matters in this language.
The Boolean and the data types.
Okay.
So I'd like to interpret this in two ways, because what he could have been saying here when he says data types are not defined is that you can't create your own custom data types, which is indeed wrong. You can create structures in GameMaker. It's in the documentation, search up structs and constructors. But maybe he wasn't referring to structs, maybe he was referring to booleans, which also just isn't true.
What's worse is that he could have easily avoided looking like a fool. All he had to do was actually read about the programming language he claims to be an expert at.
He makes the claim that you can't define a boolean in GameMaker because GameMaker itself doesn't have a native boolean type in its scripting language. In other words, it interprets reals as booleans. Now, to reconcile the fact that he used a boolean in his code with what he said, I decided to do what any developer would do, and that is I consulted the documentation. So if you go to data types in GameMaker, oh, look at that. You are also provided with constants, true and false, which can always be used in your code to prevent any issues, should the native Boolean type be defined later.
This can either be interpreted as Thor being incredibly lazy or just simply not knowing Booleans exist in the language he's using. Either way, it calls into question every claim Thor has ever made about his coding skills to this point. As a comment on YouTube eloquently puts it, "Someone please take the shovel away from Pirate Software. This man won't stop digging a hole for himself." But what's most concerning is Thor's inability to take any kind of criticism, even when it's valid. He's set up a wall of denial in front of him and just disregards anyone that doesn't agree with him. That said, this next issue isn't something he can simply ignore, since he might even end up in court because of it. The bombshell dropped on July 5th, 2025, when a Twitter user by the name of Guy made a wild accusation against Thor, stating, "Pirate Software accidentally revealed his DMs with Kronos during the April 1st Twitch Giga Train, showing that they were boosting it to themselves. This is why the stream is unavailable to watch." The Giga Train he's talking about here is actually the record-breaking Twitch hype train Thor was able to reach on April 1st, 2024. A hype train, for those who don't know, is a Twitch feature that gets activated when a streamer starts receiving a lot of donations or gifted subs in a very short span of time. It then continues leveling up if the donations keep coming in, and the more a hype train progresses, the more rewards the donors unlock, including special emojis and gifts that they can use, incentivizing them to keep spending their money. As we mentioned earlier, Thor had already broken multiple hype train records before. However, all of them paled in comparison to the hype train on April 1st, 2024, as it managed to reach past level 105. This was a big milestone in Thor's career. It made headlines, and turned Thor into an even bigger name in the online gaming community. However, if what Guy was alleging on Twitter was true, it meant that this record wasn't as legitimate as it seemed, and the proof he presented was in the screenshot of the conversation Thor had with his head mod Kronos while his hype train was active. Aight, let me know if you do. Bits is going to be the best way to do it due to the return if you need to save it. Bits rather than T3 subs. Tier 3 subs might be better, don't know. Bits is 82% return when you buy them in bulk. Have you bought any yet? I've done 100 tier 1 subs on my personal, ready to do 40 tier 3 subs on an alt. Can do bits instead or both. Did 50,000 bits at 20 seconds left. Okay, what is the alt account? Serendipitous bean. Put simply, this seemed like Thor telling his own mod to donate from an alt account to artificially keep the hype train going, and even telling him to use bits since Twitch would only take an 18% cut from them. Now, it was still possible that some important missing context could give this conversation a completely different meaning. Unfortunately for Thor, someone uncovered the deleted Twitch VOD this screenshot was taken from, and Thor's reaction to it told his viewers everything they needed to know.
"I wished I could place my head between them and go full burr mode and make..."
What? What? What is this? Where is it? I'm gonna find this. I need to find your message. God damn it, click. Click, you garbage machine. What? Who are you? Why are you like this? Number 420. Deleted.
Not only does it prove that the screenshot is real, viewers could also see how panicked Thor became when he saw it, and how he immediately switched to a different chat before actually finding and deleting the text-to-speech donation that came in. Thor tried to deny any wrongdoing on Twitter, stating, "Kronos used his own money to do this and asked if it was okay to do so. He wasn't paid for this or told to do it either. He's a grown man and can spend his money in whatever way he chooses. You can hate me all you like, but going after my staff is shit-tier behavior. Even Kronos, his head moderator, came out with statements of his own denying the allegations, reading, "Said this before in January during the World of Warcraft drama. People contacted me and others about donating during the Hype Train record in 2024. This year, I did less from the main and I did some from an alt. Removal of the VOD was, if I recall correctly, to prevent people from harassing donators as before. And while these explanations from both Thor and Kronos were still a bit suspicious, they were enough to end the controversy before it got any worse. Or at least, that's likely what they thought would happen. But on July 20th, 2025, someone replied to Guy's original Twitter post with yet another screenshot. This one showing the exact messages attached to the donation Kronos made with his alt account, Serendipitous Bean. It reads, "In real life friend of Kronos and excited that they are now free from corporate. Love your stream and what you do for people here. There aren't many cool or supportive streamers left once they get big like this. Stay cool, bud, and tell Kronos that Ben sends their regards." In other words, Kronos pretended to be his own friend, likely to avoid any suspicions from chat. However, what made this truly weird was the fake reaction Thor had when this donation came in.
Serendipitous Bean with 50,000 bits said IRL friend of Kronos and excited that they are now free from corporate.
I know.
Love your stream and what you do for people here. There aren't many cool or supportive streamers left once they get big like this. Stay cool, bud, and tell Kronos that Ben sends their regards.
I'm sorry you had to know Kronos in real life just like me.
Now, it's possible Kronos just wanted to hide his own identity to not receive hate for donating so much. However, that just explains the pretending to be his own friend part. It does not explain the shameless glazing that followed. Even if we ignore the actual message and just focus on the donation, it's still highly problematic. Not only did it manipulate the viewers into donating more by keeping the hype train alive, as Legal Mindset put it in his video, it could even bring some serious consequences for Thor, starting from Twitch itself.
So Kronos is the main moderator, and excited that they are free from corporate. Love your stream and what you do for the people here. There aren't many cooler supportive streamers left once they get big like this. Stay cool, bud, and tell Kronos that Ben sends their regards. So this person is clearly painting themselves as not Kronos, not the moderator, but a separate IRL friend of this moderator, which is extremely deceptive if you ask me.
Serendipitous Bean with 50,000 bits said IRL friend of Kronos and excited that they are now free from corporate. Love your stream and what you do for people here. There aren't many cool or supportive streamers left once they get big like this. Stay cool, bud, and tell Kronos that Ben sends their regards.
I'm sorry you had to know Kronos in real life just like me.
500 bits said when is Yarn pregnant and going to be real.
Dude, this guy can't be real. This guy actually can't be real.
Thor has openly claimed plenty of times that he hires and actually pays all his mods.
I pay our moderators full-time. Not only do they have full-time pay, they're on salary, they also get full-time benefits too. Medical, dental, vision, everything. Like, that's how this place stays cool.
So it wouldn't be difficult for Thor to reimburse Kronos as part of his monthly paycheck. Only now, it could get him suspended or even kicked off Twitch entirely. But that isn't even the worst of it. According to Legal Mindset, this has also opened Thor and his mod up to facing legal repercussions from the federal government as well.
So you need a representation, omission, or practice that is likely to mislead a customer. So the practice would be, hey, donating bits from the sock puppet account. The consumer's interpretation is reasonable under the circumstances. So the consumer is thinking this is a private party. This is somebody else. This is not the mod. This is not pirate software. They're thinking, oh, look, this person is extending the hype train. And so because of that, because that misleading representation, that materially led others to donate more to keep it going. It's a very well-known thing in scams and cons. This is something that confidence men do. They get fake buyers to go out there and gin up interest so that people will buy stuff even though it's overpriced.
And if that wasn't enough, Thor and Twitch could also get trouble on a state level as well, based on Thor falsely advertising the success of his hype train.
So Consumer Legal Remedies Act, California has that. And I mentioned California, by the way, because that's where Twitch is. So it'd be very reasonable if a California donor, if a California whale brought a claim against a California corporation in a California court against, Twitch and against, Mr. Pirate Software. But beyond that, there's California Business Code 17500, which leads to false or misleading statements or false or misleading advertisement. And this could be perceived as falsely advertising that you're number one on the hype train, that you're this hype train leader, that you're this person that needs to be donated to keep this thing going to breach all these levels, when really most of those levels, or maybe a lot of those levels, some of those levels, were just artificially inflated by either Pirate Software's mod or these sock puppet accounts. I mean, who knows? We don't really have a full track on that yet.
But even if he manages to escape any direct repercussions, these controversies have only accelerated his downfall, with the number of people unsubscribing from his YouTube channel each month jumping from 100,000 plus when the Stop Killing Games controversy happened to over 200,000 after these new controversies came to light. It truly seems like Thor's reputation has reached a point where even if he apologizes now or tries to take accountability, it's pretty unlikely that he'll ever regain the audience he once had. But just just when we thought he couldn't sink further, he somehow found a way. As I was making this video, Quinthea dropped another bombshell by interviewing Mr. Jason Thorhall's ex-roommate, as well as the person who was in charge of his quality assurance work at Blizzard.
Hi, my name's Cynthia Hall. I go by Ludiana online. I am a lifelong artisan cosplayer. I worked for 5 years at Blizzard and then 8 years at Twitch. And I happen to work with Pirate Software at Blizzard as his wrangler on Diablo 3.
And what she had to say about Thor was shocking, but not all surprising at this point. According to Cynthia, Jason was straight up bad at his job. He would constantly slack off and browse Reddit all day, and even when he did work, Cynthia often had to come in and correct his mistakes.
So we're talking dealing with all the spawns in the game, all the boss testing, having to do all the smoke tests whenever there were new builds, that's end to end, make a character run through to skeleton king kill. Like that's just testing the builds. Whatever the task was for the day, it could just be spawning different monsters and testing their affixes to see how they perform. That easy. But he would just kind of create a character and idle in the client and redirect it. That's literally what he did. He sat in front of me and I was assigning the tasks. So not only did I see the work he was not doing, I saw what he was doing instead.
Worst of all, when Cynthia complained about his behavior to the higher-ups, nothing happened, simply because Thor's father was also quite high up in the company. The same father, mind you, whose birthday is not even an afterthought for Thor these days.
Birthday and you missed it? You didn't call me? Neither did your brother? You guys both ignored me for my birthday?
That isn't true. I sent you a text.
No, you did not.
Bullshit.
That was last year.
Bullshit.
I got nothing. You sent me one last year.
Did I send you one last year? Am I a shitty son? Oh man. Yeah. It was last year. Wow.
But that's only the tip of the iceberg. His memorable moments at the company also included him yelling at his co-workers for not playing like elite gamers for a charity event.
I was on his team for a league tournament and he screamed at our team for apparently not gearing correctly to counter the other team because we were just that bad when it's not like we were losing so severely because we all played League regularly. It was not that big of a deal and we're all sleep deprived. It was very early in the morning after an overnight of playing games and we're like, seriously dude, you are raging at everybody, like our entire team. He was just yelling across the floor at everybody.
It's a charity event, correct?
It was a children's charity event.
But all of that pales in comparison to what he was like as a roommate.
That I came home and went into the kitchen. All the dishes everywhere, like the pans, still food in them on the stove, shit everywhere, food, countertops, everything everywhere. Like it was not disgusting, Sty, but it was very just a fucking mess.
Worst of all, when he eventually did leave Cynthia's apartment, what she found in his room was nothing short of disgusting.
When he finally did move out, I wish I had saved pictures of the state of his room. He had cleaned nothing, so I had to clean everything by hand. There was like, I don't know what on the walls in his bedroom, and you're just gonna have to like take my word for this. I don't know if it was snot or something else just like wiped here and there on the walls and more of the like random gray stuff, just spots and things.
Now, these stories are from years ago. Unfortunately, from what we've seen of his game's progress, he still hasn't outgrown his slacking habits. It just makes you wonder how much more negative stuff about Thor will come out before the internet just moves on. Just like Only Jayus, who's also continuing to fall into the realm of internet obscurity. Click the video on screen to find out why.